Hello, welcome to the Cool Library. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the books that I read within this second quarter of the year. So the books I read in April, May, and June. I'm going to do this the same way that I did the first quarter's video, where it's going to be more vlog style. So after I read a book, I pretty much vlogged myself explaining what I thought about it and giving all my reviews for it. So this is just me giving you the intro to this video. The total, I read 12 books. I was still kind of in a little bit of a reading slump within those first 2 months of the second quarter, but this last month I got out of my reading slump and it feels so good. Please enjoy this video, but let's get on to the first book that I read. Alright, first book for this second quarter of the year is unfortunately a DNF. It's Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I made it to page 122, which it's right before part 4, but it's 50% exactly halfway through of this book. And yeah, I wasn't liking it. And I also just wasn't understanding anything that was going on. The plot wasn't making any sense to me. The characters were actually kind of annoying to me. I just didn't understand this book, and I understand there's a lot of people out there who love it, and I think I see why, because the one thing I did really enjoy about it is the writing style. I think if it was just a different story, I would like it. I can't understand anything that's happening, and I'm done trying to understand it. So I'm setting it down, DNFing it, and that's it. I think overall I've given it 2 stars. Just because I do like the writing and I like the descriptions of the atmosphere and the world around, or the house, or whatever. I also just can't explain this book to you. Again, I don't quite understand, but we follow a man. He's in a house where there's oceans and statues and birds, and it's really big, it's huge, like there's literally no end to this house, and there's one other person there called the Other, and they sometimes meet up to discuss what they have discovered within this house. That's essentially it. Where I left off, there may be another person in this house that's after our main character. But yeah, I don't quite understand what I'm reading, so I'm done. Hello, I finished The Outsiders last night. This is by S.E. Hinton. It's from the 1960s, so it's a very old book. But I'm reading this because a friend of mine is in a musical adaptation of this book, and I'm gonna go see it. I'm gonna leave in like probably a half hour to go and see it, because it's gonna take me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get there. But The Outsiders is a classic. I think it's also considered the very first book to ever be considered a young adult novel. And this is about, it's kind of like West Side Story. It felt very West Side Story-esque, where you've got the greasers and you've got the socias. Greasers are greasers, and then socias are like the popular preppy boys, and they have rumbles, and there's a murder, and people on the run, and just a lot of stuff happens, but it also is just a little bit on the boring side. Like, I felt like reading this, I kept zoning in and out because it just wasn't grabbing my attention, even though there was a lot happening. I would have liked more with Cherry? Why am I forgetting her name? But it's the one with like, that like always hung around Ponyboy, and I guess kind of liked Ponyboy. And I'm just like, I would have liked more from her in the story, especially with the ending. I was like, I'm still not quite sure what's happening with her character in the end. It was enjoyable to read, but it also just felt lackluster at the same time. But I'm giving it 3.5 stars. Okay, so I just came back. It's now nighttime because it's a long drive, but I just came back from seeing The Outsiders musical. I loved it. I enjoyed it more than the book. I was crying my eyes out. The songs are beautiful and were giving me goosebumps every single time someone sang. And like the fight choreography was so cool looking. They even had, you know, like rain coming down on the stage. But oh my god, it looked so amazing. And it just was amazing. I unfortunately did not get to see my friend after the show because I saw the matinee and then there was like another show happening at nighttime. And apparently he does physical therapy in between the shows. Didn't get a chance to say hi to him, but he did a fantastic job. I'm always so proud of him and what he accomplishes. Oh, I can't get it out of my head. The musical is a 5 out of 5 star, by the way. Also, I was like reading in the booklet about the book that I read, The Outsiders, that I did not know. So S.E. Hinton wrote the book when she was 16 years old. And it was like based off of real life experiences. And I'm just like, so this is kind of a true story. I don't know. It was a great show. It is going to Broadway, so if you get a chance to go and see it on Broadway, I highly recommend it. It's very good, very well done. And now I'm gonna go eat some dinner, which is chips and salsa, because I did not get a chance to do any grocery shopping this weekend, but that's okay. We can live off of chips and salsa for one day, and then start a new TV show. I have read my next book, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. This was the book club pick for my works book club, and I was going into it not really expecting to like it, but I came out liking it. I think before book club I gave it a 3.5, but after book club and after our discussions about it, I've raised it to a 4 star. But here's my thing. The beginning I liked. It was kind of slow and the characters are very annoying, but by the middle, the characters are still annoying. Like, all these characters are super flawed, but by the middle, I loved it. I was loving the middle. I was really loving the dynamics between all these characters and all the things that were happening within their lives. It was just very interesting. But then the ending, like the last couple of pages, I really didn't like. And I wish I could explain why, but it would be a spoiler. I think, no, I can't explain. So basically our two main characters, Sam and Sadie, they grew up being best friends and then something happened and they had a falling out, and then they reconnected in college and became best friends again, and they started creating video games together. And this does take place within the late 90s and the late 80s and early 90s. And then we also have a couple other characters. We have Dove, who I really hate, and then Max, I think his name is, who I loved. He was my favorite character. But Sam and Sadie, they keep like going back and forth between friends and not friends, and maybe more, maybe not, and like hating each other. It's very all over the place. But the reason I didn't like the ending was because I felt like both of them needed to apologize to each other for certain things, mainly Sadie. None of those apologies ever happened, and I just didn't like it. I was like, I want there to be some closure in those things that they both have done wrong to each other. So after discussing it with the people at work during book club, I think I have raised it to a 4 star because the way that they explain certain things, I was like, okay, that makes more sense. So that makes me now change my mind on that aspect of the book. So I liked it. This did also make me cry. There was a part kind of towards the ending that made me cry. But overall, I enjoyed this. Hello. It's towards the end of May and I have only finally just read. I haven't done a lot of reading. I've been in a really bad reading slump, honestly, all year. But the 2 books that I've read are both very short books that I've been able to read within one day because I can't seem to focus on a book for too long. I don't know why. But the first book that I've read was The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich by Dea Muniz. This is I got one hand, graphic novel. And it was very sweet, very cute. I actually really enjoyed this story. So with this, we have Lady Camembert, which, by the way, I loved all of the cheese puns that are within this book. Everyone's named after a type of cheese. Even like the towns and the kingdoms are named after cheeses. It's great. But we have Lady Camembert who wants to live a life on her own terms, you know, without marriage. Well, without marrying a man. So, but the law of the land is that the family fortunes cannot be passed down to women. It has to be passed down to men. So when her father passes away, she disguises herself as a man and then moves to the capital city, the Kingdom of Fromage, to start over as Count Camembert. But there she then meets the Princess of Fromage, known as Princess Brie. Cam can't resist getting to know the princess, but as the two grow closer, will she be able to keep her secret? This was very cute and sweet, but also had a lot of like moments that were a little on the sad part, but overall just sweet and fluffy. Made my heart feel good. Read it within one sitting because I couldn't stop reading this one, which is good. But yeah, I gave this 4.5 stars. I don't have much to say except please go read this. And the only other book I read, I literally just finished, is Galatea by Madeline Miller. I have read Circe by Madeline Miller. I still haven't read The Song of Achilles, which I do want to read. But this is a very short story. It's only 56 pages about Galatea. And if you know Madeline Miller, she writes a lot of Greek mythology retellings. So this one is about a marble sculpture who is brought to life, and then her sculptor marries her, and they have a daughter. But the sculptor is controlling and jealous, and he does not want Galatea to know the world. He is not a very nice man, I will say that. In a desperate bid to control her, he locks Galatea away and keeps her under the constant supervision of doctors and nurses. Galatea, however, yearns for independence. She has a daughter to rescue and is determined to break free, whatever the cost. I enjoyed this one as well. It was difficult to read at times just because of how awful her husband is and how she has to act submissive. And those parts were kind of hard to read. It was still an interesting read and an interesting look at the characters. In such a short amount of time, I really was able to connect with the character. And yeah, I gave this 3.5 stars because it didn't feel quite like a 4-star just yet, but I thought the writing was really great. Alrighty, I've read 2 books since I last saw you. I have read Over My Dead Body by Sweeney Boo, as well as Lore Olympus Volume 4 by Rachel Smith, or Smythe. I've really been having difficulties with reading. I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to get back in, and right now graphic novels are the only things I can read. Over My Dead Body, which I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. It's a graphic novel about witches in school. So it's like a dark academia with witchy vibes. And yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot. We have our main girl, Abigail, and she has a friend who has gone missing, and there's this whole lore with the forest that they live next door to, that the school is next door to, kind of like the Forbidden Forest for Harry Potter. And everyone thinks that this girl who's gone missing is a part of like whatever happens within this forest. There's a beast and it's like killed her. And of course our friend is like, I'm not going to rest until I find my friend. And so she gathers 2 of her other friends and tries to help solve this. But of course the teachers don't want her to solve this and get involved in it. And they're trying to like keep her away from it. And it was very fun. I liked it. And then we also have Lore Olympus Volume 4. I have such like a weird relationship with the Lore Olympus series because like I wasn't quite enjoying the first couple of ones, but this one is my favorite. I gave this 4.5 stars. So this is continuing on the story of Hades and Persephone, which Hades is the god of the underworld, Persephone is the goddess of spring, and they're in love, but obviously there are complications around it. And there was just something about this, like not this version of the story, but like this part of the story that was just, it was so compelling. Every single page was compelling for me. The only reason it's not 5 stars though is again, the layout sometimes confuses me. I sometimes just don't know which speech bubble I'm supposed to read next, and all that stuff. But this has been my favorite volume so far. Both of these, I really like the art styling. It's very colorful. Anyway, these two were hits. Alright, I feel like I am out of my reading slump because I have just finished, well, I finished them last night, 2 full-length novels, not graphic novels, not like a short story, a full-on novel. And I'm like, I feel like I'm back to reading at somewhat a normal pace that I normally do. So I feel really good. And the 2 books that I guess have gotten me out of a slump, one I liked, one I didn't like, but they got me out of a slump. So I read Prince of Song and Sea by Lindsay Miller. This is the first book in like a series all about the Disney princes. So this is the Little Mermaid from the perspective of Prince Eric. Now, I read this because I watched the Little Mermaid movie. And, Prince Eric has always been my favorite Disney prince, but, like, having his resurgence in this live action Little Mermaid, yeah, I fell really hard for Prince Eric again. He is now my phone's, wait, no, that's me, hold on. He is now my phone's background. Can you see it? It might be too bright, but he's my background on my phone now. Oh, I may have just messed up the white balance. So I was like, I need more Prince Eric. I need more Prince Eric. So I saw this book sitting on my shelf and I was like, that's right. I have a book that's all about Prince Eric. So I read it and it's a 2-star book. I don't think I would recommend this to people. I feel like if you want to, go for it. My biggest concern, there are 2. Number 1, they marketed this as YA, but I think it reads very middle grade. Like the writing style is just very young and childish that I feel like it almost can't be YA, but the characters are the age of YA, and it's just, I don't know. It threw me off how young this read. And then secondly, we don't really follow the story of Little Mermaid. Like it starts off, as the storyline of Little Mermaid. But then after Kiss the Girl, it goes into a whole different story. And I'm like, none of this happens in Little Mermaid. What is going on? And so it kind of pissed me off that we got this like totally different story when I was not expecting a different story. Like when you say you're going to tell the story of the Little Mermaid from Prince Eric's point of view, don't change it up and make it something completely different. Yeah. So I wasn't too big a fan of this book. I was a fan, however, of Happy Place by Emily Henry. Oh shoot, I just remembered. I gotta tell my cousin that I finished it, and hopefully she's finished it and we can talk about it. But I read Happy Place. I have read all of Emily Henry's other romance novels, and I think my favorite is still Beach Read. Most of her romance novels are 5 stars for me, but this one I'm giving 4 stars. I think I did this in both audio and physical, and I think the audio killed it for me. I think, I don't know, the person who voiced the audio was just acting a little too much. Like, I feel like some people go too far when they're doing an audiobook that it kind of takes me out of the story. So when I switched back over to just reading physically, I liked it so much better. But I don't know, this didn't really do it for me as much as her books normally do. I think because her books have a lot of witty banter, and this book I felt like had no witty banter. I'm also not the biggest fan of second chance romance. I do think she made it very believable, and I bought the relationship, I bought the chemistry, I bought why they had to fake it for their friends, I bought why they broke up, and like them getting back together, which is not much of a spoiler. We all know that's how romances end. But like all the reasonings behind all these things, I bought and I believed. But I don't know, I also just felt like some of the characters, mainly Sabrina, were just too annoying to read from. But overall, I did still very much enjoy this book. So that's why I'm giving it 4 stars. It's just, I feel like it's definitely not my favorite of hers. Hello, I'm just dyeing my hair, so excuse the look as well as a skirt as a top while the hair is dyeing. But I wanted to discuss with you a book that I read. We discussed it in my Works book club today, so lots of thoughts. It seems like I'm one of the very few who didn't like the book, but the book is The Gunkel by Stephen Rowley. I really wanted like a fun rom-com-y, not rom-com, but like just like a fun, funny, lighthearted story. Which when I describe this plot of the story, it's not going to sound lighthearted, but it is lighthearted. So we have a gay uncle named Patrick who is taking care of his niece and nephew because they just lost their mom, who was also not only his sister-in-law but his best friend. And his brother / their father is in rehab, so he is looking after the kids for 90 days. And he is not very good with kids at first. There's lots of shenanigans that happen, but it's also about, you know, dealing with grief and what comes with that. And I don't know, it wasn't as fun as I wanted it to be. I also found our main character and most of the adult characters really annoying. It also, like everyone says, it's hilarious. It's hilarious, lots of humor. Like, everyone was just saying how hilarious this book is, and I didn't laugh once. I didn't really find anything funny. Another thing to note is he is a famous person, but I don't know, there was something about the way fame was talked about in this book that just irked me for some reason. And I thought a lot of the dialogue just didn't feel like real conversations that people would have. And also it's very forgettable to me. I felt like every time a side character's name was mentioned, I was like, I know I've heard this name. I can't remember who this person is and how they are connected to the story. So a lot of it was just very forgettable for me. So yeah, I didn't really like it. I just didn't feel the connection to the story that I wanted to feel. However, the good things about it, it's definitely a really quick, fast, easy read. So if you want something quick to read, this took me 2 days. And I also enjoyed the characters of the children. I thought they were very cute. And there are bits and pieces here and there story-wise that I liked, but overall it just kind of blends, and I'm already starting to forget it even though I finished it yesterday. No, I finished it this morning. But yeah, so I think my overall rating is 2 stars. I can't keep a straight face and hold this book up at the same time. So I read this. It's called Turn Up the Heat by Marie Hart. This is the 4th in a series, I didn't realize, but thankfully with romance series, you don't have to particularly read them in order. I'm not gonna rate this book because I wasn't reading this book for its plot or its characters, which if I was, this would have been a 1 star. But I was reading this strictly because I wanted something sexy and kinky. And I just literally looked in the romance section of the bookstore and just looked up all the covers and was like, is this sexy? Is this sexy? And I saw this one and I was like, you know what? Let's do a fireman romance. This looks like it's going to be sexy. And you know what? It somewhat fulfilled that need. The sex scenes were good. There could have been more. Again, I just wanted this to be nothing but sex scenes because that just was what I was craving. Don't judge me for it. I just needed it. So yeah, I'm not going to rate this, but it was okay. Moving on. Good morning. I got a haircut yesterday. And I also finished this book yesterday. So let's talk about it. This is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Now, Riley Sager. There have been 2 books of his that I didn't like. 2 books of his that I liked. And 2 books that I loved. So like 2 or 5 stars, 2 or 4 stars, 2 or 3 stars. I was not sure where this was going to fit. I was so worried. And I gave it 5 stars. I'm so happy to be back to loving Riley Sager because his last 2 books that I've read were not great. So in this, it's a thriller with like a mystery. We have this woman who is a caretaker, or like a caregiver, and she has been like accused of killing her last patient when she didn't do it. But then, you know, they can't prove that she did it, so she gets scot-free, but she's kind of like on probation at work, and so they're like, here's your next position. You're going to be caregiving for this old woman, and like they say her name, for Lenora Hope. Now Lenora Hope is kind of like the Lizzie Borden of this world. She has been accused way back in the 20s of murdering her entire family. It was never proven that she actually did it. They couldn't prove that she did it, so she gets off scot-free. But of course, the whole world is convinced that she did it. So she's been living her life in seclusion and whatnot. And so she's caregiving this woman. Of course, she's scared. She's like, why am I caregiving a murderer? But in the process of caregiving for her, we learned about what really happened that night. And oh my god, it is wild. I found all of the characters interesting. I loved them. I mean, obviously they're all flawed, but like they were still all interesting to read about, and I just wanted to know like what was going on. Also, this book had me hooked from beginning to end. I was so hooked. What else it did from beginning to end was keep me guessing. I kept trying to predict this thing because honestly, I've never been able to predict a Riley Sager book. It always like goes off the rails, and most of the time I love it. This time I definitely did love it. And I kept trying to like think, oh, this is it. And then I was like, wait a minute, they keep mentioning it. Maybe it's a red herring. I don't think this is it. Never mind. And then oh my god, it was crazy. And then of course, so many reveals. I kept gasping, like audibly gasping as I was reading it. I love this. And I love the atmosphere of this book too. Oh my god, the atmosphere was like so creepy with like this tilting house that was like falling apart and it shambles. Oh my god. So good. So yeah, I finally have another 5-star Riley Sager book. And also this is actually the first 5-star, not including rereads, of the year. So that's exciting. Alright guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Here is a list of all the books that I read within the second quarter, from my favorite to my least favorite. And I did the same thing for my movies, so if you want to check out the movies that I watched in this second quarter of the year, I will link that down below. And yeah, that is it. I will see you guys later with more videos. Bye!